Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott back again for another episode of the Nolecast. Bud, we always thank our sponsors. Tonight looks like you got the classic Louisiana hot sauce t-shirt on, so those
I do.
of our YouTube, either live or otherwise, can appreciate what at this point is rapidly becoming a vintage t-shirt, I believe. But no, man, great as always to be able to do this. We thank our sponsors, also the great people at Tarpon Cellars Winery, tarponsellers.com. And yeah, you want to do a Prize Picks review real quickly here, and then we'll fade immediately into the Florida State game itself. We can certainly touch on a couple of the less thans that occurred from the Florida State perspective of the ticket, and go from there.
Yeah, let's do that. So the one we gave out on the show was awesome. Went 5 of 6. If Ole Miss doesn't decide to try to cover the spread super late for no reason against Georgia Tech and start throwing the ball like crazy, we had Jackson Dart less than 245 passing yards. He had 47 in the first half, and they throw like crazy. He had a 40-point fourth quarter, so not great there ultimately, honestly, but yeah, not great. 5 of 6 though, we'll get it done. Almost had our third 25-1 of the year, which would be ridiculous. On the Florida State card, let me see. I think the Florida State stuff we gave out was good, which, I mean, I would expect it to be. We do have an FSU-centric show. So let's see if I can find this here. But the stuff we paired it with, I think, did not hit. See a couple people in the chat saying they won $250 and a couple other nice dollar amounts there. So that is awesome, guys. I'm really happy for y'all. Seriously. That's what we want. I definitely gave a little bit back on NFL Sunday. So we went less than on Jordan passing yards. Took more than on Jordan Moore and the card we tweeted out from the thing. Less than on Travis Hunter. Not the way I wanted to win that. Like, I know a lot of FSU fans don't like Travis Hunter. Kid was always really cool to me, and I really like watching him play. So I hated to see that. More than on Dominic Lovett. That hit. More on the Minnesota quarterback, Cali McManus. He got hurt. So super annoying. And Amari Niblack, more than 33.5 receiving yards. 0 is not actually more than 33.5, turns out. Went to public school, but yeah, you and I can figure that one out. Turns out Bama's offense had a little bit of an issue on Saturday. I don't know if you caught that or not.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Players only meetings being called. Lane Kiffin calling them out for switching play callers, going back to Milroe, secret suspension or not. I feel like when I first started Tomahawk, like back in 07, 08, there were quite a few players-only meetings being held. Yeah. That usually ends poorly.
Players-only meetings in week 2 or 3 is normally normally not a leading indicator of success. We'll put it that way.
You think he's done?
It feels like we're getting there. Yeah, I mean, and it's not necessarily him, and I don't get to listen to a whole lot of national stuff. My days are fairly occupied, I can assure you, but. Josh Page has had a good hold on this. I mean, it's when you hire Kevin Steele as your defense coordinator at this point in your career, that's something that I immediately was like, ooh, I don't know if that's
you're clutching to the old school to make yourself feel good.
Well, and I just don't know. You and I've talked about this offline. The further and the deeper you get into the successful head coaching tunnel, the further you are removed from what the up and coming assistant pool looks like. And he's certainly done a great job of either grabbing an up-and-coming assistant or, being a rehabilitation opportunity for others as they go through, whatever it may have been in their career, whether a firing as a head coach or all the reasons that he's had some great staffs. It just doesn't seems like you have all the talent in the world. And with this Alabama defense this year, you'll be in damn near every game, but feels like the offensive side of the ball has kind of gotten away from him.
All right, let's talk a little Florida State here. Obviously, it is an FSU show. I appreciate everybody. Guys, hit like and subscribe on the channel. We look at our analytics. Less than 30% of our viewership is subscribed. There's no reason not to subscribe. Sometimes we do these shows without any social media going out because we want to talk to the people who care enough to follow us. And then the stragglers can catch it later. So, Keston had a good question here in the chat. He says, having very good but not elite talent catching up with us. For example, playing vanilla defense and offense, believing you can out-athlete an inferior opponent. I think I might quibble with the some of the designation, but I think directionally he's correct. Yeah, like I don't think you have enough talent to where you can just roll the ball out Roy Williams style and just smoke every single team you play, regardless of whether you got your A stuff that day or whether you're having a little bit of an off bullpen. You know what I'm saying? Like you still had 2 high school recruiting classes that are your second and third and fourth year players now that weren't up to snuff as far as like competing for playoff, national title, that type of stuff. You've done a great job, obviously, supplementing it via the portal and making up for some holes. But yeah, I think directionally that's probably correct. We were actually talking about this before we came on the show. Like, and I thought when you did the solo show, you made a great point. Like, they don't look like a national title team in the sense that we have come to understand what a national title team looks like. Now, we may be having a 2007 type event this year.
Yeah, it does feel like we're having a crazy situation where we could have a 2007, for those of you that aren't familiar, basically, what was it? It felt like every team that got ranked number 1 or number 2 lost every week.
USF was number 2. Kansas
Yeah.
went number 2. Missouri went to number 2 that year. I mean, it was but like if we think that like you play as like a national title team, right? It plays as like a 32, 33, maybe a 35. Maybe that LSU 2019 is like a 38 type thing. Florida State's not there. They're probably more like a 24, 25. Like they'd be like a touchdown dog to the team that we generally think is like the best team in the country until that team identifies itself as like the most amazing team in the country by a lot. And then they'd probably be like like a 10-point dog to like a last year's Georgia team, not like a 17, 18, like TCU ended up being eventually. But they're still a damn good football team. Like Boston College played the best game it's played all year, despite the penalties. You played probably your worst game in terms of focus, commitment, coaching. I think like the coaches would admit that. Norvell basically did in his press conference today. The fact that like a lot of these guys pretty clearly had the flu and warmed up with masks on, and we know that some of them missed practice last week with flu-like symptoms.
It was an issue.
Yeah. And you still won the ball game.
Not an excuse, but it was an issue, definitely.
No, but like if you got the flu, I mean, we've done flu podcasts before. We're not there running around. You're up 31-10 with what, 17 minutes left?
Yeah,
maybe a little bit less. Like we're getting pretty close to garbage time if you don't allow a defensive score and fumble a kickoff. I went back and watched. You want to go offense or defense first?
Yeah, I would encourage people to listen to your podcast, your Instant Reaction podcast. It's very good. It gave perspective on both sides of the ball. Got a glowing recommendation from my mom, by the way, but she texted me at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday. Like, if you listen to the Instant, it's very good. I'm like, thank you, Mom. I appreciate the heads up. Yeah, let's start defense because I think there's 2 different conversations to be had here.
That was. I struggle to say that was the best offensive line you've played, but it was the best offensive line effort against you that you've seen, I think, overall, especially before Taylor went down, the left tackle for them. They blocked you pretty effectively. So far this year, the defense has been able to largely win up front, or at least stalemate. That wasn't always the case. I don't know that they had a great plan for this, man. Like again, Norvell today basically said, felt like we could have done a better job coaching him up. Could have had a better plan. I'm not putting words in his mouth. Just I watched the press conference. They don't have enough talent on defense to where they can play like hero ball or have guys not really trust what they're seeing, trust what they're doing, playing together so they can play fast. We got a lot of guys that I think will make an NFL camp. Maybe get their name called, on day 3. I think we'd both agree we don't have a lot of like first round types on the defense. I mean, Verse, I think Cypress gets drafted. I think Green gets drafted. probably need them in the first round type thing. And again, most teams in the country are in the same boat. So you have to play together, you have to play fast, and you have to like really understand what your role is, on the defense. And I'm not really sure that everybody did in this game. I think Castellanos, the mobility, it looked like his level of mobility kind of surprised them a little bit, but also like kind of took them out of their game some, dude. To be honest, it was like they were so worried about that they kind of lost track of what they were supposed to do on some of these plays.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like you have some different things of your defense through at different times of the games. I mean, you opened up with a little bit of pressure from the edge as far as
Yeah,
cornerback blitz, and
and Knowles whiffs it.
yeah, and yes. So then you do a little bit of mush. I don't, look, I'm not a podcaster is not a guy who's appropriate to like question a defensive coordinator or other things like that. There's just different levels of knowledge to the game, but some of the things that we were trying on defense was surprising to me and would be, I don't know. It is Castellanos. Like there is something almost freeing if you're the only guy on your team that is of like the athletic level of your opponent. Like you just
Yeah,
know it's on you, right? And so you can kind of play free and you can kind of know that like you're kind of playing without restrictions or limitation. Like, so what if you don't get free and run for 16 yards? Because nobody else on your team is going to be able to do that. And it just looked like Castellanos had a very special day. I was a little bit concerned that as the process of the game played out, you didn't make things more difficult for him to have a very special day. Like you kept allowing situations for him to spill and to get out into the open field and to improvise. And that's a decent thrower of the ball that was legitimately recruited to either play running back, wide receiver, or defensive back for some of the better teams in the country. Like that's an athlete at the level that you're not going to see this year on your schedule again, absent what you may draw in the playoffs. If should you be fortunate enough to get there, so that was more it. A guy, a really talented athlete, not a great quarterback, but a talented athlete, had a great day. It was kind of surprising that you didn't do some things throughout the course of the game to limit, what he ultimately had to put on his resume.
Agreed. I'm going to turn down that fan. Can you hear that in the background? You hearing it like click, 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 click?
I
Maybe
could
not.
No.
God, we got good microphones. Remember we didn't have good microphones?
Yeah.
I'll leave it on. It is fairly cooling in the room. I agree with you. Like, look, we knew they didn't have great safety depth. They pursued a couple safeties who went into the portal. They didn't land any of those. When Dent goes down, you're forced to play Knowles, who, look, like, I don't think I volunteered to go play the position, but he's not played safety for a long time. We both know that they had considered moving other guys to safety in the spring, right? Not named Kevin Knowles. Now they settled on him for whatever reason. It's definitely an issue. I think teams are exploiting him a little bit right now. Like that's kind of a problem. I think you're largely okay at corner. Like not amazing, but good at corner. Safety is absolutely a concern. Linebackers don't look like they've taken a big leap to me. Bethune actually looks like he's taken the biggest leap year over year, and that's probably more due to health. You're very familiar. I think everybody in the audience, if you're not new to the show, is familiar with my opinion about coaching at the linebacker position as well as recruiting. So I don't know how much we need to go over that every single show. I think we've cut down on that some, but again, the old Office Space line, what would you say you do here? Some of the backups when they went in didn't particularly look super ready to me. And again, I really do think, man, that like they tried to play most of their base stuff against this guy, thought they would get away with it. In some ways, they kind of did. I mean, you allowed 10 points through like 40 something minutes of the ball game.
Yeah, I mean the game that we
rate.
predicted, I think I was 41-13. You were somewhere in that area. The game what we predicted was right there. It was 31-10 going into the fourth quarter. And that's what makes me I know the flu thing is real. I talked to some guys on the team. They're quick to dismiss it. They're not trying to make it an excuse. But yeah,
Well,
there was
Farmer looks like he's running a quicksand, and that's not what he's looked the first 2 games.
There was a flu bug going around, but you still went up on that team 31-10, you know? So I give credence to it. I also somewhat dismiss it because you weren't a bag of lethargy throughout the course of the game. Now, there are certain rooms, and I think you just touched on one of them, that when you can watch the tape and get a pretty good idea as to where some of this might have been.
Running back, D tackle. Yeah, exactly. I will say this, like, if you practiced all week with wet balls and you don't think this kid's much of a thrower, I mean, your opinion of him as a staff is that he's a running back because that's really what you recruited him to play. And you think we have a hurricane coming. Was the plan really to sit in too high and just play your quarter stuff? I get that maybe you just want to rep more quarters against a mobile quarterback because like you're largely a base quarters team with kind of man principles, which sure, I get that. But what is that really what you repped in practice all week for a potential rain game, potential hurricane game? Because it wouldn't make sense to me to sit in too high in a hurricane, right? I don't need too high if I've got the huge eye in the sky handling the hurricane, like the deep ball.
Yeah, like, you've got a 12th defender, if not a 13th. Absolutely.
So I thought that they should have muddied up for him a little bit more, played a little more single high, potentially brought a little more like delayed pressure on him, right? Like once he sat back there for a second, they did a decent job with this against Daniels, and they didn't do that a lot. And again, like it really does come down to there weren't a whole lot of opportunities this kid missed, by the way. Like he really played his ass off. When you messed up, he killed you almost every time. Like how many throws did he just out and out miss? It wasn't a ton. Hell, there's one. He's like full on Kobe, just fading back and launching it as he's about to get killed. And it just happens to be like an awesome throw. You played it right. You're basically there in phase and coverage. You force the kid to make like an impossible throw and he hits it on you. Yeah. So look, linebackers and safeties not communicating. That's not a flu thing. That's got to get better because you don't have enough elite talent in the back seven, like high end NFL talent to when you try to make the playoff or get to the playoff to where you can afford to have mental mistakes. And through the first 2 games, I actually thought they'd been okay with that. So this is not a recurring thing necessarily for me. Although first half against LSU obviously had a little bit. You kept him in the pocket some. You did not compress the pocket well enough. That could be a flu thing for sure. And it felt like you were just kind of,
You've seen glimpses of that in some other games, but yeah.
Agreed. It is what it is. Like this is not a top 5 defense. I don't think it was reasonable to think it would be. It's definitely a better defense than you had last year.
Yeah, it's not a top. It's not a like 106 defense either. Like I know, like
who has that?
It's total yards. I know this has never been a
total
yard podcast.
The last time total yards were a relevant stat, podcast didn't exist, guys.
Well said.
I'll tell you where I have them now. I'm not going to give you where I have every single team in the country, obviously, but I've got them 13th.
Okay.
That seem fair? Like the defenses that I think are better than Florida State right now, like that I would trade for. Bama, Georgia, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa, Clemson, Notre Dame, Texas, NC State.
Okay.
That seem fair? And NC State and Florida State are basically tied.
Yeah, I mean, this defense being a top 20 defense is kind of my mental anchor right now. No, you'll just see if.
Iowa too. Like you got to kind of figure out, like, do you think Iowa's real, or is it just like there's some weird interconference stuff? Like Iowa within the Big Ten is one, like it plays to a certain number, but Iowa out of conference plays to a total different number because they actually have to face a passing offense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's probably fair. You're somewhere between a top 20, top 15 defense, with some really nice pieces, and yeah, just have to see. If some of those moments where you flash, there's a play that Fabian makes early that's just like, there's Fabian Lovett, there's Fabian
Yeah.
Lovett. I remember, damn. And if you can get that a little bit more consistently on the inside, and some of the better things happen, then yeah, you're probably a pretty good defense. But there's certainly been some cause for concern throughout the first three games, periodically in small pockets, obviously in game number two. Uh, but yeah, Saturday was hopefully a wake up call for everybody across the board, and I know that this is tired, and other people have said it in cliche to an extent, but it could be a good thing as far as how a team responds, and you basically had the ability to take a loss and still have a zero in the loss column, and that's that can be a definitely a learning experience.
This is why we always try to talk on the show. Like we don't craft the show to the scoreboard. We like, you can't ignore it, but like we try to craft the show to what we saw. That keeps you more level headed. If you're way up here after 66-13, despite the fact you saw some problems, which we did and commented on, then you have to be all of a sudden way down here when you play to a 2-point win over Boston College. And the fact of the matter is, you probably, like, you played better than the scoreboard at BC, and you didn't play to a 53-point win over a halfway decent Sun Belt team 2 weekends ago, or 2 weeks ago, rather. So you don't always play to the number, though.
Well, you know what 500 people have done that can't be ignored.
That's the number I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
Legendary. Chad's in the chat. Is Shannon in the chat tonight?
I haven't seen Shannon, but Chad has certainly been in there, and you could talk directly to Shannon should you choose at 844 FSU Loan, 844 FSU Loan. Like we mentioned and joke about, more than 500 Nolecast listeners at this point in time, and the emails continue to come in, and that's always a great thing to see as far as emails indicating new loans granted through the partnership that we're so proud of. But Shannon's just an awesome dude, as good as anybody out there to walk you through this process and let you know what your options are. As I said, 500 Nolecast listeners can't be wrong. Big thanks to what Chad and Shannon have meant to this podcast, and we would wholeheartedly and enthusiastically ask that you give them consideration should you need some sort of mortgage in your near future.
Completely agree. All right. So, let's talk offense. I was more concerned with this, I think, immediately post-game than I was after the rewatch. This felt like extremely grab bag, and not like it had a lot of like cohesion and plan. And I'm not saying that like they didn't have a plan, because I don't think that Norvell really, want. I don't think after Jacksonville State, like, that they go into a game just completely not trying. But I do think that they tried to do some things in this game that were specifically like repping certain things they just wanted to rep, right? Or just like when they go into a big game, don't you feel like their plan is really good? Almost always, or at least like it makes a lot of sense what they're trying to do. Like they clearly, you could see them setting up stuff in the LSU game the entire time. The home run throwback to Bell off the bluff screen, right? They were setting it up for a long time. They're trying to work like multiple variations of counter. They run more. They run more GY. They go a little back tight in same side. Like this game felt a little more grab baggy to me, and I would expect a better plan against Clemson. Maybe a plan that is more specifically tailored to what Clemson does. That's kind of my thought. Maybe some more shot plays, and maybe about it. If you want to win this game, you probably need to you're running.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, this is not an offensive line that's going to blow people off the ball. Not good D lines. You need to add, like, you need to be the +1 in the run game of the quarterback, right? They really didn't do that here. I mean, how many times did Jordan pull it? Twice? Maybe 3? Wasn't a lot, man.
Yeah. I think I can remember him carrying the ball 3 times.
Obviously, one he got dinged on. I would expect him to play. So, like, if you come back in that game.
Oh yeah, I don't even think that's
Oh,
consideration.
people were asking about the whole
Okay.
photo of him in the sling, but like,
I've heard nothing. I mean, look, not that we're a source for injuries. There's people on the ground that cover this, and they do a great job. But I would fully expect to, yeah. So
yeah. And I look, not to overlook opponents again, but your upcoming opponents are who? Syracuse after the bye week, right? And you get
Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Duke.
And isn't Wake in there too before you get Miami?
Yeah, Wake is I believe the 28th, the last weekend in October, if I recall.
I mean, if you play really poorly, you could lose to Duke. Duke's actually probably pretty good this year.
Yeah,
like, they seem to be super healthy. I mean, the quarterback, if you rank the top 3 quarterbacks in the ACC, he's firmly in the conversation, right? Maybe you put Van Dyke in there if he keeps playing really well. We'll see. But man, like, you got a lot of time. I mean, you're not going to. You could play Tate Rodemaker and beat Vatek by 10.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure on that. So you probably need to run Jordan against Clemson. I think that helps a lot of your issues right now, because right now I don't think these teams are respecting it. I would expect against some of these mid-level ACC teams for you to continue to have problems in the run game. If this is what your offensive line looks like, you don't have Mo Smith right now. We'll see if he's able to play against Clemson. You don't have Rob Scott. We'll see what he's able to do. But I don't think they really respect it. And so, like, they're not playing Jordan to keep the ball. We'll see.
Yeah, this is not good podcasting, but Nick Chubb sustained a injury, the type that it makes your stomach feel upset tonight. So, not like a neck injury or something, but sustained a neck.
Is that what he was down for?
A leg injury that is looks kind of Lattimore-esque. So.
Oh my God. Yeah, I saw them try to pick him up, and then he said no, like he knew. No, I didn't see what actually happened.
Yeah,
brutal. Everybody I know that like talks about him just loves that guy.
He's an incredible guy. Yeah, it really is. It's very, very unfortunate. So
man, that sucks. Look, is Jordan not taking the open throws because he's doing a little more like NFL style, throw it to the guy one-on-one, hope the guy can make a play? Looks like it right now. Yeah. Is that something I think you're going to drill into him pretty hard this coming week? Yeah, I do. But also, like, he's never been a great 1, 2, 3 progression guy. A lot of, like, this is why, first of all, I think he's a really good college quarterback. He doesn't look a whole lot better than he did last year. There is a reason, and I'm not trying to be a jerk about this, but there's a reason you got him back, okay? Because if he had like a legitimate first round or second round or third round type grade, he doesn't come back to school. Those guys go and they're playing on Sundays, not on Saturdays. I don't think he's like considerably worse than he was last year, but he hasn't made some big leap so far. Now in practice, sure, but it translated to the games, you've had what, like 20 good minutes? Like, no, that's not true. 20 elite minutes, basically against LSU. No, I don't think the staff needs to simplify. I think he needs to stay within the structure a little bit more of what they're calling. They need to make sure they're on the same page with what they're calling with him. Like, hey, are you comfortable? Are you seeing it? And I'm sure that they will get this right as far as his comfort for the offense by Clemson.
Yeah, I'm not the Jordan part of this conversation. I'm not concerned about. I mean, I'm
a little concerned, right, but I think you're not a ton. Like, I'm not freaking out concerned, honestly. Like, I think he'll get it right. They didn't look like they had a lot of plan, man. LSU, they had a plan.
One of the early phrases of the Jimbo era that I got so tired of hearing was, "You can't go broke taking a profit," or whatever. And that's something that might want to write that in the quarterback room this week. And I do think that you'll see a guy who's, Jordan, I'm not worried about it. And I'm probably too biased by what I've seen in practice, because I have seen a different level quarterback, and I have full faith that will translate to a game setting. And we'll see if that comes true. Now there are aspects of the offense that I have more structural concerns with. And that's a different conversation. But ultimately, I think you're good at quarterback. I think you're going to be good moving forward, absent an injury or anything else. So,
all right. So we can look at our notes here. All right. You may not solve the run game stuff if you don't have the quarterback run, which again, I think you're largely fine in most of the games. The Pitt game I view very differently now than I did because they might just have a total zero at quarterback. Like that was, I don't know how many of y'all watched that. And I'm not trying to like jump ahead 7 weeks here because things can and do change in this sport. But that's 2 data points now where it looks like Pitt just has an absolute, like they just don't have a quarterback at all. I think he was like 30% again. Just not. They had 211 yards of offense on a pretty poor West Virginia defense. Yeah, like you're probably going to be fine only needing Jordan to run the ball 3 more times this year, maybe 4, if we're being generous in terms of the regular season. It's a lot of games you don't. In certain games, you will need to because that's probably how you solve some of your run issues, honestly. I do think like there are a couple of runs in this game if you watch it that they can pop. They're just, I'm not saying they're super close, but like there's going to be a time, and maybe it's next game. Like maybe it's like, oh, well, the run game hadn't done a damn thing. And then all of a sudden, like they bust out a 70-yarder against Clemson. There are some where like, remember how Jim always used to say like they're out the gate, just one more block type thing. And the problem was never the run game being out the gate. It was like you don't create any explosive passes in your offense at all. Like you use passes as like a maintenance tool for your occasional explosive runs, which is not a great way to do it. Not when the rest of the sport is just exploding with explosiveness around you. If you add the quarterback run game to this, I do think they can start creating explosive plays again with the run game. I do think it makes people play you a little bit differently. And especially if you do that and you take a little bit of the underneath stuff, the screen game, I mean, look, it's not that Coleman misses the block on the play that you had the fumble for your little slip screen to the back. It's that he looks like he's like running a route. He doesn't really attempt to block the guy. Like I think he just didn't know what he was doing. The integration of some of the new pieces maybe is not as fully formed as we wanted it to be. And you do got a lot of mouths to feed. There ain't no doubt. I mean, this is something like we didn't shy away from talking in the offseason. Like that's going to be a challenge. I think it's good that you got Bell some balls in this game and that he scored. Like he's, LSU was not.
I think he
fully
scored
garbage
twice
time.
for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, and he got one against, he got 2 against LSU. So now the guy's got 4 touchdowns.
No, I'm saying, well, he was in, he was in on one and they put it at the 2-inch yard line or whatever. But yeah, no, I mean, Bell is very, very, very impressive, unique player, and probably has the best. I'm not saying move him to running back, and let me reiterate, I'm not saying move him to running back, but what you do see in his skill set is that he might be as good as any offensive player that we have on this roster as far as setting up your blocks and seeing guys downfield and using that to your advantage. And that is a very real aspect of football. And when Johnny Wilson is running, one thing where there is no variance in Johnny's game is Johnny is just a big 6'7" tractor trailer running downfield, getting in guys' ways and pushing them out of the way. And Bell seems particularly good at setting up his blockers. So having said all that, I do think it's critical that you keep him engaged, involved, and continuing to get the ball into his hands. I'm not going to make too much of one game where only Keon Coleman gets thrown at 3 or 4 times or whatever, but that's, not something that you want to necessarily. I would think that's not a habit that you want to have run too deep. So.
Do you remember the Randy ratio?
I do not.
All right, so this was really kind of stupid by the Minnesota Vikings staff, but it was a thing they did. I don't know when it was. And they're like, all right, we're going to have the Randy ratio. We want to throw the ball to Randy like at least, I'm sure somebody in the chat will remember what it was, but I think it was like 15 targets a game for Randy Moss or something like that. Other teams like, all right, cool. We'll double Randy every play. Not that we weren't going to anyway, but like now you guys are so, like you're putting it out there. I don't know if we don't need to verbalize a Keon ratio, but if Keon's not getting, I don't know if he's not getting like at least 3 or 4 targets a half in competitive games, you're probably not doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way you don't have a certain number of plays that need to be going at him consistently. But he didn't play his best game, clearly. Like that, some of the missed blocks, some of the, I think, attention to detail stuff could be better. And from everything we heard at Michigan State, his practice habits were pretty good.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I'm not particularly worried about that. People can have off games. Sometimes your team has an off game together. Chad, who I'm not going to scroll up all the way to find it because there's a lot of messages here tonight. But Chad of Legendary had made a point. He's like, at what point do we just decide to spread this thing out and chuck it? I still think that's the break glass plan.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Maybe not in that weather up there, but I think you were about 10 more minutes against LSU from just saying, screw it. We're just going to let Jordan sit back here and pick the targets and chuck, and just go throw.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got some weird mismatch personnel type stuff going. They'll figure it out. Like, I'm not saying they're going to go out and just go 5 wide against Clemson or, even go, a lot of empty, but Jordan seems to operate pretty well from empty. And in those big games, they're not afraid to break it out. Like, think about it. They did a lot of empty against Oklahoma. They went some empty at times against Florida. Miami wasn't really a big game last year, but regardless, like you can use Bell as a bit of a move piece because he can block enough, and like I don't think like the effort's not been poor there blocking wise. It'll be interesting to see what they do with this thing. Like they're clearly not fully clicking, but yet I'm not crazy concerned because I don't think they had I don't think they had the same level of intensity that they had against LSU. Clearly,
maybe some of that was impossible
and focus certainly not. Yeah, right. Like you're not going to play that level every single game. Oh. But I think they'll have a better plan, like specifically formulated stuff to try to create coverage busts of Clemson.
Yeah. We'd encourage you to have a plan and specifically formulate stuff to optimize your business with Matt Lewis and the great team at Congruity. As I'm fond of saying, I've worked with Matt and his team literally at every professional venture I've been a part of over the past 3 or 4 years, and would encourage you to at least give him consideration and give him a phone call, 5-10 minutes, see if there's a partnership to be had there. We can't endorse Matt and his team enough, and thoroughly enjoyed working with him. CongruityHR.com is the website that you can go to. But as always, we want to thank Congruity for what they do and for them contributing to making the Nolecast possible.
Jay Noel wants to know, what do you guys make of the cryptic message from Keon Coleman with the 3 football emojis? Well, there was an NFL guy, I think, who tweeted 4 of them because he only got 4 touches or something like that. So maybe it's that. Kids obviously follow NFL guys on social media. Or maybe he's celebrating the fact that Florida State has 3 wins. I don't know. You guys.
I thought it was that Florida State stayed at number 3 in the coaches poll. Actually,
oh, look at that! Perfect. Yeah,
it may well be that. I also think Keon is one of the more singular focused people that I've encountered on the NIL side of things, and I don't mean like. Let me rephrase. What I'm saying is just from working on NIL and having a chance to work with these kids more. Keon's as focused on football as anybody that I've encountered. I'll put it that way. And I would not be surprised if that was just him saying, ball is my focus right now. I don't know. I've never talked to Keon Coleman, and certainly I'm not going to ask him about his tweets or X's or whatever they're called now. But that dude is as focused as anybody that I've encountered. And he's about ball.
Yeah, I agree with that. I still think Florida State should be considered the favorite in the ACC. I still think that they have a good shot to go up and beat Clemson. We'll get more into that. We need to figure out our Clemson guest, by the way. I would ask my friend Anna, but she's actually on maternity leave right now. So probably not going to give us give us the free time there. She does a good job covering that program. You think Hood's available?
I'll reach out to Hood. Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
That could be a solid guest there. He's always a good guy to chat with. Man, I'm really like I'm not that worried. Maybe I should be. Like they're not perfect. And if you're judging them on like the go win the national championship standard, you're probably having a freak out. But like the last 2 solo pods we've done, like that's not the standard I'm judging them to. Like I'm trying to keep that same energy from what we had in the preseason. I know you are too. Like maybe slightly elevated, obviously, because they've shown a certain level. Oh, chat wants to know about slot receivers. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if you're a slot receiver, you're like, shoot. I know you're on Instagram. There's that Instagram meme. I know my wife sent it. Maybe I've sent it to her. Where it's language from a comedy skit, and it's like a pile of towels that are unfolded, talking to like some other stuff that's like not done around the house, and it shows the wife sitting down there looking at her phone or something like that, or husband. I won't be sexist. And it's like, you see me? It's like, yeah, you see me? And like basically like pretending that they're invisible because she can't see them. I'm sure that's kind of how the slot receivers feel in this offense right now. Like, wait,
I was going to say,
what?
I think
that was really roundabout.
Maybe Jordan listened to the wide receiver preview where we didn't mention Destin Hill or something like that. Who knows? No, I'm just joking. But,
or maybe that's the secret weapon. They're just waiting.
That may well be the secret weapon. That's not now. When I say that, like I do think Jordan will take more of the easy stuff moving forward. What I was referencing 4 or 5 minutes ago, it's that. It's Destin Hill and a couple of the other options that are available in the underneath game. So we'll see. I'm not worried about that. Destin Hill. There's been many fine receivers who have gone and introduced themselves to both this fan base and the broader college football world at Clemson, and that would not surprise me at all if that happened this weekend. Dustin is waiting to have a big game. He's on the verge. So,
also Jordan did not ignore all the underneath stuff against LSU.
Mm-hmm.
There may be a thing that he's pressing a little bit, right, and just trying to hit the home runs. Like they did a whole Heisman campaign for him. I mean, certainly if Florida State goes undefeated, he's going to be in the conversation because they're going to be on the back of him having those Heisman type numbers. Maybe there's part of that, right? And you had so much success with your 2 big wideouts against LSU, but he also would take some of the underneath stuff against LSU. So I don't think that there's some crazy idea here that he can go back to that.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's just easier to be more. I don't want to say focused, but just it's easier to. When you're playing an opponent like that, and you're playing an opponent that you've spent 3 months focusing on a lot, not exclusively, but a lot. Maybe it's a little bit easier to be more. I'm just going to take what's there in the immediate. And when you're playing a team like Boston College, that you think you're significantly better, that it's easier to look long and then maybe not make your way back short. So, yeah, the running game is more what I have a little bit of concern with long term as to how much of that can get cleaned up. And like you, I think we've got a lot of really good offensive linemen, but I don't know that you have somebody that's just a absolute road grader. And so that'll be interesting to see. And I think what I've said about Trey Benson for the past couple of months has been true. Very, very good running back, but I think it's a guy that you've got to feed the ball to and let him continue to warm up and get going into a game. And that'd be interesting to see how how that gets balanced and how that ultimately gets used.
A lot of people in the chat are asking about Biscuit. Like I like Marquise and Douglas. I don't think that he's like an amazing player yet. I think he's a guy who's a little bit ahead of schedule, but was super raw. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he's some huge difference maker for you. Like maybe as a blocker, potentially, if you wanted to go that way more.
I would agree with the comments that stem from blocking. Absolutely.
Yeah. Morlock's still learning there. But I guarantee you, like Mike Norvell and company are not hiding like a no doubt NFL type player at tight end who's that size on the bench. It's just not happening. If he was actually like that good, he would be your no doubt number 1 starter.
Mm-hmm.
And Bell would be a complimentary piece, and Morlock would be on the bench. To me, he's not yet. to your point about the run game, the physical stuff is not necessarily fixable within season, right? Like you are kind of what you are. It'd be really nice to get Mo Smith back. I think he's just a better center than what we have. I do think the continuity stuff, the communication stuff, that can improve as the year goes on. Give Atkins more time working with these guys. Eventually, they'll probably figure out a lineup. I mean, Casey Roddick's not a bad player. He's not great. He's certainly better than some of the guys you've run out there in recent years. But they
does feel like they're playing a little bit of Rubik's Cube right now.
Yeah.
Right. And trying to figure out the exact positionings and pairings and groupings. And there's nobody I have more confidence to get all the colors on the same side than Alex Atkins when it comes to that position. I mean, you legitimately have one of the 3 to 5 best position coaches in the game. I'm all but certain of.
Like, I don't think that they're close to being like an awesome get you yards mostly whenever you need it type run game. I do think that they will pop some explosives. Like, again, coming back to, if you have to respect Jordan, teams are going to have to, like, they will not be overplaying some of your stuff so hard. Like, you have a lot of fast flow going on right now. Also, like, they didn't run a lot of their little boot stuff against Boston College.
Yeah.
If you did, you probably hit some of those guys dragging against fast flow, and all of a sudden, a little different, right? Like, you're obviously going to, this is not like inside baseball. If I don't want people to accuse me of that. You're going to run some stuff against Clemson that you didn't show in the last 2 weeks, especially if Clemson overplays some of your run stuff like the last two teams have. It's just common sense.
Coach AB of the high quality product X's and Knowles. If you guys aren't otherwise familiar with it, I would encourage you to go find it. Probably the best piece of content out there in the Florida State space as far as reviewing tape and trying to get a better ideas to responsibilities, etc. State's cleanup buyers, missed assignments, continue building the cohesiveness with your double teams and run games. Gonna pop. Run game is very close in his opinion. AB, I very much value your opinion and appreciate you giving us that type of feedback. And yeah, you're probably right. I just still think you're looking for whatever your optimal pairing is there, or maybe it's not the plan. Maybe the plan is to play, 8 or 9 guys a game and really try to utilize those interior pieces that you seem to swap out throughout the part of the game to try to wear people down. Who knows? But it does, to me, feels like you're still trying to figure out exactly what your best 5 is up there.
We're a little early on the Clemson preview stuff. How is Clemson's O-line compared to LSU? LSU's is better. I think, full stop. I mean, LSU has multiple guys that I'm convinced will be drafted, maybe highly. I'm not sure Clemson has that, honestly. D-line. D-line's probably closer overall, especially like it's going to play to a higher level being that it's at Death Valley, and they obviously didn't have Mason Smith. By the way, did you watch that LSU Mississippi State game over the weekend? Because kind of glad they didn't have Mason Smith. To be frank, there, Mississippi State had a 15% success rate until LSU pulled its starters. 15. That's it's not great. Yeah. I know that they're trying to transition from an air raid offense that was vertical pass setting 60 times a game to all of a sudden running stretch like what App State runs 45 times a game. A little hard to transition there, even if you have experienced guys. But 15% is not really going to get it done. That's like an FCS team, dude. Yeah. So. And Mason Smith didn't even play like a full complement of snaps. Like he's like still coming back a little bit. So anyway, yeah. Clemson's O-line is not as good as LSU's. Clemson's D-line is probably pretty close, I think, to what you faced in Orlando, especially because it's going to be in Death Valley. So it'll play to a fairly high number in terms of performance rating. Clemson linebackers are pretty active. We'll go over this stuff more, but we'll have a full Clemson preview. I've watched I think every Clemson snap so far this year.
Yeah.
So I feel fairly good about our guess on that. We really didn't know what the hell Boston College was going to run with Castellanos because I hadn't seen him like in a game that you didn't have the like with them as an underdog, you know.
One thing that we absolutely know for sure is what you should be doing on Friday nights. Particularly, we're going to have a Clemson game here bye week and then 3 straight home games. And whether you're in Tallahassee or making your way to it for a game, would encourage you to think of our friends at Charlie Park, always Township and Madison Social as well. But Friday nights at Charlie Park are fantastic. We've actually used this frequently in the past to meet sponsors and other friends of the show up there. But did you see some of the menu options over there, Bud? I know that you
I
and I
did.
have
Matt
looked at this
texted me today.
previously, but the steak and potatoes, 12-ounce grilled ribeye, root vegetables, cauliflower, sage butter, shallot, sage butter, and purple potato puree. Look, man, when we say it is unlike anything else in Tallahassee, absolutely mean that. It is a setting that needs to be seen, needs to be appreciated. That is Charlie Park there in the Cascade Park area, and would thoroughly encourage you to have that on your list of things to do as you make your way to a future Florida State game. So big thanks to our friends at Charlie Park as always.
Do you think I should bill Michigan State for quoting, or not quoting me, but like kind of ripping me off in their letter to Mel Tucker? They basically used my saying it was consensual is not a defense to engaging in self, with a university contractor while married. So yeah, that was it. Did you see that? Like they basically they went hard in the paint and just said, Mel Tucker, you're out of here. Didn't have to wait for the hearing. They just basically said your admission of this and claiming it was consensual is enough. Because regardless, which is we got some heat for doing the instant who should Michigan State hire show like that afternoon. Like, guys, there's no coming back from this.
Yeah, that's the it was written
0%.
Yeah. So
sorry about that. Fuller, guys, I really don't think that we're going to do like Mike Norvell is not going to make any kind of call on sorry. See some other good stuff from the chat here. Bill says Morlock needs to work on his hand placement when blocking and not leaning into defenders. Totally. Yeah, that's a very fair criticism, and I think something he'll have to do. I agree with that. If Mo comes back, do you put Darius at guard? I think considering how Darius has actually handled center, you might try it. Yeah. I mean, you may get him some run there. What else do we have here? I know there's a lot of good stuff in the chat earlier. DeRusso says all these angsty questions, complaints evaporate if you beat Clemson by 2 scores. Yeah.
If you beat Clemson by 7, I think a lot
by
of this
any number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, how and I almost said this earlier and I didn't because I thought it would be sound like me trying to convince people of Pollyanna or whatever, but what percentage of the fan base would have taken 3-0 going into this point?
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's let's just keep some things in mind as we go through this experience. So.
Your win against LSU is looking better and better. I don't seriously think you can get 2 teams in from the ACC, but the chance is probably gone from 1% to maybe a 5%, just given what else is going on. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Yes. I had some lovely people tell me how stupid I was to say that there could be a slight off chance of something like that happening, but can't concern yourself with much stuff like that. But
I'm hoping actually I'm not hoping. I just hope you win the ACC, and we don't have to. I don't have to admit that I was wrong.
Screw it up.
I mean, look, this is a good football team, guys. It is. They're not a perfect football team. Sometimes you get another guys even really good hitters will go 0 for 4 sometimes against pitchers that are not great pitchers. They keep you off balance. They expose some stuff. Maybe you're struggling a little bit. I like where this team is. There's not a whole lot of teams out there that I think are like that. I mean, how many teams would you really take on a neutral field over Florida State right now? Not many. I mean, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. You could tell me Penn State. I could argue Florida State back in your face. I have a hard time thinking Bama.
It doesn't get much. The offense. Might be USC. And
Texas.
That would be where I would go.
It'd be close.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to worry myself with the polls, but I chuckle at the fact that Texas, after being tied with Wyoming in the fourth quarter, whoever they were playing moves up. That's fine.
Yeah, that is kind of silly. They're a missed tackle away from being like a touchdown game super late at home as a 34-point favorite.
Yeah. So, no, it's 3, maybe 4. I need to get. I need to know the USC team better before I say that with whole heart. But yeah,
there's some chance Oregon might be really good too. We need to see it. If they are, they'll handle business this weekend in a big way.
Yeah,
that would be. Hey, do you take? You ever think about taking the ball first in overtime? Did you see this?
I stayed up till 2 a.m. watching that crap. I could not.
Yeah, I was super tired.
I was frustrated. Not the ending that I thought was going to play out there for a second. So.
I actually think it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you got the confirmation, like, okay, you're not a crazy person. They are what we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
And you let them off the hook, to quote the late Dennis Green.
Yeah.
But now you get the national TV game for Oregon, and you get the big Fox national TV game for USC.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they wanted all the smoke.
Yeah.
Here comes the smoke.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, chat says Wyoming is a solid team. I don't disagree with that. They are. They're also a team that you should not have struggle with at home. But again, teams have off days. Georgia was losing to South Carolina at the half.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina is terrible this year. Well, relatively terrible, I guess. Not Mississippi State bad, but the late Dennis Green, exactly. For people who don't know that quote, that was who were they playing? Were they playing the Vikings or who were they playing? It was somebody.
He was coaching the Vikings, wasn't he?
Oh, were they playing Arizona?
Oh no, maybe it was coaching. Yeah, I can't remember. He bounced around there for a bit, and we let him off the hook. It's a great quote.
He was coaching Arizona, and I don't know, Chicago Bears, the 06 team when they had like no offense and just all defense. I think that team made the Super Bowl and lost to Peyton Manning for the Colts.
Okay.
The Reign Super Bowl in Miami. Sounds about right. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Okay. A lot of this is designed to limit game film for Clemson, possibly. I look, guys, this is a damn good football team. Like, there's not a whole lot to really complain about. There's some stuff you can nitpick for sure, but there's not a lot to like seriously complain about. And like, unless you go up there and totally lay an egg against Clemson, I'm gonna feel about the same way. I think, honestly, like, we know it's a good team. You're at kind of a point now, like, you're gonna play a lot of better good teams.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna win a lot of those. You're gonna lose some of those. Just kind of is what it is. You're clearly good. We'll see how well people can exploit that. We got anything else we need to get to? Crown their asses. Yeah, that was
talking back to our old friend Sean there. So
that's kind of how I feel about some of these teams out there right now, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That keep getting propped up in the polls. I'm like, really? This is kind of what we think this team is. We okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The weather in South Carolina this weekend, I have not checked.
There's been some early Euro models out there that I don't even want to speak it into existence. So I'm just gonna.
Oh wow!
Leave it there.
Seriously?
I mean, I'm not.
I will give you guys a tip, by the way. Windy.com.
Mm-hmm.
Did we talk about this?
Yes, this is the site you mentioned. We didn't give the address, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, windy.com. You can check to see like what the actual weather will be at a certain time at field level if you happen to have any kind of needs for that type of thing. You were right though. The Boston College Stadium is kind of down enough in the bowl to where it limits the overall amount of wind.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson, by the way, has some injury concerns.
Yeah, they do.
Turner is out for the year at receiver. Looks like. I was scanning some message boards earlier. One of their posters said that Walker Parks was in a quote, one of those big ass boots. That's a starting offensive lineman, as opposed to, I guess, just like a,
Yeah.
I interpret big ass boot as like one of those like immobilized, more full calf boots, not like a booty, but like a boot. They got a couple more too. I don't know. Not everybody is 100% health. So
yeah, interesting.
We will continue to monitor the situation. I did not know that windy.com is a great app too. Sorry, we're a little off topic tonight. But
no, it's been good. Right at an hour. With that, we'll probably wrap it up. But enjoyed this as always. Good to be able to go back, look at a game, a little bit of perspective, and try to make the most of it. So hopefully this is just but a blimp on the radar, and Florida State moves on. But hey, here's to being 3-0. Here's to not having the month of September ruin your college football experience and many other things that we've been able to go about differently this year. And this weekend will be a hell of a lot of fun, and we'll be back Wednesday night, most likely maybe Thursday, with a full game preview, and I'll hit David up here immediately after this, and we'll have him bring on the venerable David Hood of TigerNet, I do believe. So.
I think he'll do it. Awesome.
Oh, man. Yeah. Till then, bud.
Buddy. Yes, sir.
Good talking to you.